Today we have a question answer opportunity, so I hope there will be some questions. Ima Dhamma no Dhamma Pratipandya Buddhang Pujemi Dhammang Pujemi Sanghang Pujemi. I worship the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha by practicing Dhamma in accordance with the teachings. May this offering be accepted. यदि किसी भाई बहन को कोई प्रश्न हो तो पूछ सकते हैं. Otherwise, Deepti can see if some way we can motivate. कोई भी प्रश्न चीज जो अभी पिछले हफ्ते में हमने रिफ्लेक्शंस किए हैं उसमें से कोई चीज समझ ना आई हो, ठीक नहीं लग रही हो, तो प्लीज फील फ्री. Idea is that we really understand them deeply and internalize them. You have some questions, Deepti? आप पूछ लीजिए.
जी सर. सर पहला क्वेश्चन ये है कि आजकल हम जो 10 संज्ञा कर रहे हैं तो उसके पर्सपेक्टिव में क्वेश्चन है कि अभी तक हमने 3 संज्ञा पढ़ी हैं, अनिश्चय संज्ञा, अशुभ संज्ञा और अनंत संज्ञा. तो क्या इन तीनों के बीच में कोई संबंध है और क्या कोई एक किसी दूसरे से ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है?
अभी तक हमने 4 संज्ञाओं का किया है. आहारे प्रतिकूल संज्ञा का किया है. वो वैसे शुभ संज्ञा के साथ ही जोड़ा जा सकता है. तो ये संज्ञाएं हैं, इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब है द वे वी लुक एट द वर्ल्ड. एंड जो 3 बेसिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं, अनिच्छा, दुख, अनात्ता, वो आपस में रिलेटेड हैं ऑब्वियसली. इनफैक्ट जो परसेप्शंस पे सुत्त है, जो मैंने शायद अपने नोट्स में भी डाला था, उसमें 7 परसेप्शंस भगवान ने कहे हैं जो उनको इम्बाइब करके विल दे लीड अस टू द डेथलेस. उसमें अशुभ संज्ञा, आहारे प्रतिकूल संज्ञा, अनिच्छ संज्ञा, एंड देन इंटरेस्टिंगली इट सेज अनिच्छ दुख संज्ञा, दुखे अनत्त संज्ञा, देन सब लोके अनभिरति संज्ञा, which is so, and marana sanya. So quite a few of these sanyas are common between Girimananda Sutta and these. तो एक बात तो हमें स्पष्ट है, अनंत लक्षण सूत्र में भी हमने देखी थी, आदित्य पर्याय में भी समझा था कि अनिच्छ संज्ञा जो है वो आधार है और उसके आधार पे ही हम कहते हैं कि दुख है. क्योंकि जो प्लेजेंट एक्सपीरियंस है वो दुख क्यों है? क्योंकि उसका स्वभाव अनित्यता का है, तो वो बदल जाता है, इसलिए उसको दुख कहा गया. सामान्य भाषा में समझने के लिए हम ज़्यादा उसको अभिधम्मिक पर्सपेक्टिव में नहीं ले जाना चाहते. ट्राई टू कन्फाइन एज फार एज पॉसिबल टू सुत्ता पर्सपेक्टिव. तो क्योंकि सारे अनुभव हमारे अनित्य हैं, तो कोई भी अनुभव हमको अबाइडिंग सेटिस्फेक्शन नहीं दे सकता. तो उस सेंस में वो दुख भी है. और जो चीज़ अनित्य है, दुख है, हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं है, तो नेचुरली वो हमारी आत्मा नहीं हो सकती. क्योंकि आत्मा का जो कंसेप्ट होता ही है वो परमानंद है. तो इसलिए दुखे अनंत संज्ञा उस सूत्र में बात की गई. सो देयरफॉर अनिच्छा, दुख, अनात्ता डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड टू ईच अदर. अब रही बात इनमें से प्रोमिनेंट कौन सी है? ये 3 तो obviously they are the most prominent ones because they are the not understanding them is the basic hallucination with which we suffer. चीजें अनित्य हैं लेकिन हम चाहते हैं वो नित्य बनी रहें. चीजें दुख हैं, अनसेटिस्फैक्टरी हैं, लेकिन हम उसके प्लेजेंट एस्पेक्ट को देखते हैं, अनप्लेजेंट को छोड़ देते हैं. चीजें अनात्मा है, लेकिन हम तो उसको आत्मा ही मानते हैं। वो हमारी एबिलिटीज हो, चाहे हमारे दुर्गुण हो, चाहे वो हमारे फीलिंग्स हो, चाहे हमारा शरीर हो, सब कुछ हम अपना ही मानते हैं। तो बेसिक हेलुसिनेशंस हैं हमारे। प्रहलाद से कहते हैं दे आर दी रियल ट्रबल मेकर्स फॉर अस। अब जहाँ अशुभ संज्ञा है, इट इज स्पेसिफिकली फॉर ओवरकमिंग लस्ट, ओवरकमिंग स्ट्रॉन्ग अटैचमेंट टू द बॉडी ऑफ अपनी बॉडी एंड अपोजिट सेक्स बॉडी। तो वो तो स्पेसिफिकली उसके लिए रिकमेंड की जाती है। अगर किसी में दोष चरित्र है, मतलब उसका नेचर ऐसा है दैट ही इज गिवन टू अवर्शन मोर, देन अशुभ संज्ञा इज नॉट रिकमेंडेड फॉर हिम, ही शुड नॉट प्रैक्टिस इट। So in the time of the Buddha, when he taught it, it is reported that many bhikkhus got so disgusted with the body that they committed suicide. So he stopped it immediately and said, no, you can't do that. So you have to see that is meant for that. Or then ahare patikul sanya is for him who is obsessed about food. If somebody is anorexic, वो खा ही नहीं रहा है, वो अगर अनाहारे प्रतिकूल संज्ञा करेगा तो बिल्कुल खाना ही छोड़ देगा। So we have to see accordingly what is suitable for everyone. Anicca, dukkha, anatta are suitable for everybody, but other sannyas we have to see appropriately. So it's not that they are more important than the other is less important. They are appropriate. We have to see when they are appropriate.
Sir, so in that sense, we are also saying that they are also conditioned. So we invoke them depending on the conditions.
Their utility is conditioned. Because it's not that Asubha Sanya is not true of some things. ऐसा नहीं है. But whether it is contemplation of that is suitable for me or not depends on my mental makeup. If my mental makeup is already critical, full of aversion, जैसे कहा जाता है ना दोष चरित्र, चरित्र बताया जाते हैं कि कौन से हमारे टेंडेंसीज हैं, कौन से करेक्टेड ट्रेट्स हैं, किसी का राग चरित्र है, किसी का द्वेष चरित्र है एंड सो ऑन। तो अगर द्वेष चरित्र है तो उसके लिए रिकमेंडेड है मैत्ता भावना करें, should practice metta, not subha bhavana, because the possibility of his being obsessed with a body is much lesser than that of another. But if it is there, then one can properly manage and balance it under the guidance of a suitable kalyana mitta to how to manage it properly.
जी सर, थैंक यू सर। दूसरा क्वेश्चन है कि अनात्म का जो की संज्ञा जो है उसको हम कल्टीवेट करने के लिए खंड पंचखंड का रास्ता भी ले सकते हैं या संखार या कर्म का रास्ता भी ले सकते हैं, तो इनमें क्या डिफरेंस है?
मैंने जो प्रस्तुत किया था सबके सामने, उसमें कई सारे पर्सपेक्टिव बताए गए थे। द आइडिया वाज कि किन हमारे जीवन में जो इंटरेक्शंस होते हैं, सेंसरी इंटरेक्शंस विद द वर्ल्ड, उसमें हम कहाँ पे सजगता की कमी के कारण, पेनिट्रेटिव इंसाइट न होने के कारण देख नहीं पाते और हमारा आत्मभाव पुष्ट हो जाता है। तो इसीलिए वो अलग अलग चीजें उसके सामने कई सारे ऑब्जेक्ट प्रेजेंट किए, कई सारे तरीकों से प्रेजेंट किया। अनात्ता लक्षण सूत्र में एक तरह से है, गिरिमानंद सूत्र में जो है 6 इंद्रियों के माध्यम से बताया गया, उसमें 5 खंडों के माध्यम से बताया गया। बट दे आर ऑल इक्विवेलेंट, यू नो, इफ यू हैव टू लुक एट इट। किसी की प्रोपेंसिटी होती है आउटवर्ड लुकिंग, सो ही और शी कैन लुक एट द आउटवर्ड फिनोमेना, क्या हो रहा है आंख पे, मेरे को ये देख रहा हूँ और उससे मुझे राग जाग रहा है, सो आई शुड सी, लुक एट इट केयरफुली एंड सी इज दिस how this craving is arising and how it is giving rise to the notion of a sense of essence in the object, essence in the seer, essence in the seen, and then you create a sense of self. Because राग आ गया तो इसका मतलब वो उसमें सार होगा तभी तो राग जागेगा, नहीं तो राग क्यों जागेगा? या देश हो जागेगा तब भी जागेगा। कोई सारहीन चीज है, कोई उसमें एम्प्टी है, उसमें उसके प्रति राग द्वेष क्यों जागने लगा? सो हम सोचते हैं कि राग द्वेष ही जागा, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ अहम भाव भी पुष्ट होता चला जा रहा है. So that's why those discussions were done. And then we took up various other possibilities of day-to-day interaction, कि भाई हम किस तरह से खासतौर पे जब शरीर में कष्ट होता है या कोई प्रेज होती है, और वी डू समथिंग वेरी नोबल, हाउ वी टेक दी थिंग्स टू बी पर्सनल, एंड दे सीम टू बी क्वाइट नॉर्मल. अगर मुझे बहुत कोई कठोर वाणी बोलता है तो मैं उसका जवाब दूं. कई बार लगता है कि अगर मैं जवाब नहीं दूंगा तो आई एम बीइंग अनफेयर एंड आई एम ट्राइंग टू सप्रेस माय इमोशन. यू नो, दोस काइंड ऑफ थॉट्स आल्सो कैन कम इन. सो वी सीम टू बी कि वी शुड डू पुट द पर्सन इन हिज प्लेस. ऐसा नहीं हो, नहीं तो वो मुझे, यू नो, कॉमन स्टेटमेंट आई यूज्ड टू हियर, इफ यू आर ट्राइंग टू बी equanimous in every situation, then people will treat you like a doormat, and जो मर्जी है कर लें आप तो शांत समता में रहेंगे. So that's not the idea really, isn't it? But the fact is that we should see the arising of that kind of a phenomena, arising of a need to set others right, arising of a need to clarify my position. You know? If I am misunderstood, I am trying to clarify. Of course, conventional sense is fine, but if I look at it very deeply, I'll find I'm clarifying because I have a worry about my image being spoiled and not being. So can we delay that process? Can we wait for see whether the nature will automatically work upon it? You know? We find very interesting suttas in Tipitaka where, for example, that sutta where this lady is going to the Jetavana, or I think Jetavana is Shayad, and then she goes there every day and comes back, and then those the opponents of it, they kill her, and then सब जगह फैला दिया जाता है कि इन लोगों ने मार दिया भिक्षुओं ने because they molested her, and then अपने कुकर्म को छुपाने के लिए उसको मार के भगा दिया. And when the monks go to the city, then लोगों को खाने देने से मना कर दुत्कार के भीग देते हैं. So when they inform Buddha, it's all right, don't worry, don't have to give clarification, wait, खाना नहीं मिलेगा, कुछ दिन नहीं खाएंगे, जितना मिलेगा उतनी खाएंगे. And they wait, don't clarify their position. Buddha gets disrepute, all the monks get disrepute, but they wait for the truth to reveal automatically. So that because the sense of clarification, मेरी image खराब हो रही है, all that doesn't arise there, and they wait for the laws of nature to operate. It may not be true for all of us to do that, but what I'm trying to point out is that these are the things which seem so normal, and yet we don't realize that this is being done on the basis of self-will. That उसमें हमारा अच्छा भाव आ रहा है. हमने अच्छा काम किया, लोग प्रेस कर रहे हैं, तो ऑब्वियसली अच्छा ही तो है, कन्वेंशनल सेंस में तो बिल्कुल ठीक है ना. और देन if we are not very mindful, we'll notice that sense of self is rising. When somebody is praising, I'm really liking it so much and taking it personally. Then therefore I pointed out the need for looking at whenever do any activity we do, whether successful or unsuccessful, especially successful, we should first focus on. The success is not entirely because of my efforts, howsoever apparent it may be that I contributed the largest, because we must see this, and it has to be based on panya. तो प्रज्ञा के आधार पे हमें समझ हो, सिर्फ सोशल क्या कहते हैं पॉलिटिकली करेक्ट होने के लिए नहीं, आप सबका कंट्रीब्यूशन है बहुत अच्छा, थैंक यू वेरी मच. You don't mean it, but you say it. That actually is a very kind of oblique way of strengthening our own ego. We should be very clear. And of course, if we have done more, then we also acknowledge that. In a closed group, we can always acknowledge it. There's no issue about it. No? And if the honorarium has to be paid according to the work done, you pay according to the work done. That's okay. But you recognize that each and every work is important. And therefore, the success of a project depends on everybody. And that should be internal, because that's helpful to me as a meditator. It helps me to keep my ego in check. Then we took to even next level of doership कि भाई हमारी जो एबिलिटीज हैं जो हम समझते हैं वो मेरी पर्सनल हैं. मैं बचपन से बहुत अच्छा रहा पढ़ाई में, या मैं बचपन से बहुत अच्छा रहा म्यूजिक में या स्पोर्ट्स में, और मैंने ये प्राइज जीता, वो किया. They obviously seem to be personal qualities because they're apparently so. But if you reflect deeply on them, why is it that I got those qualities at the birth? Why not my brother or others? There must be reason. And then we have the Paticca Samutpad teaching and how these sankharas transmit from one life to another. And we introduced the concept of karmic ancestors. And we said, all those people have contributed in that man. If I'm able to meditate better than I was earlier, or if I'm right from childhood, I have that tendency of spiritual inclination, there must be reason behind it. So once we understand that, then we don't take these things personally and keep our ego in check, even though it's apparently my own quality. I mean, nobody will deny in the conventional sense that, yeah, it is your quality. And so you can be happy about it. Yeah, there's all the reason. But when you recognize that, then you have a gratitude. You have a gratitude towards others, you have gratitude towards karmic ancestors, that, yeah, it is happening. And then you are motivated to do the same thing, that we should really repay the debt of the ancestors for that purpose and then pass it on to the others so that they also can benefit from that point. So the perceptions change. And we looked at also the intention issue, the chetana. Now, all these are things which are so important in our day-to-day life that if we don't put attention on, we normally don't put attention on them. So the whole idea of discussion was to draw our attention to the fact that these things are also worth putting attention because we usually miss them. Intention hai to theek hai. Of course, I decided to go for a walk. You didn't decide. I decided and going. I decided to come here and not look at the TV program. Is there any doubt about it? Of course not. There's no doubt on that. But how did this decision come across? Then when you look at the dependent origination, again, the essence of Dhamma, as Buddha tells us again and again, dependent origination. One who sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma. One who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. That's the way equation is put. And we heard it in the life history of Venerable Sariputta, also the same thing. So we have to see this part. How dependent origination will help us to resolve the sense of self in various ways. And even such a thing as my intention. I mean, theoretically, it's obvious. Chetana is a mental factor. It has to be conditioned. It's not unconditioned. So how can I say that मैंने सोच लिया मेरी मर्जी है मैं ये करना? You're not autonomous agent to think whatever you like. It doesn't happen like that. So we recognize it theoretically, but then we practically do it. As I had requested yesterday, have a look at any of your decisions and see how the decision was taken, by what factors govern the decision. So when you do in so many different ways the things, next step we'll take is observer, the biggest stumbling block in sense of self. Okay, everything is changing, body is changing, sankharas are changing, agreed, yeah. But observer is there. I am the observer. Who else? I am observing that my body is changing. I am observing that my mental defilements are reducing or increasing. I am observing that mind is wandering away. I am observing the breath. Who else is doing it? That's one of the last stumbling blocks of the sense of self, where we catch hold of it. So we'll discuss it in our next session. So what I'm trying to point out is that all of them are basically pointers for us to be vigilant, that at these points also the sense of self can arise absolutely stealthily without even our knowing it. If we focus entirely on the conventional reality, we'll be caught. We'll be trapped and sense of self is strengthening. If we keep all that, we don't have to do something great about it. We have to remember, oh, this is the conventional reality. Absolute reality is Yes. Interdependence. Absolute reality is that if one leaf of a tree becomes yellow and falls down, other tree leaves have also silently consented to it. They have also not helped in that process. So they are also culpable in some sense. And that's a very powerful reminder for us. If somebody falls down, if somebody does a wrong action, apparently we are not responsible for it. But in the cosmic view, in the ultimate sense, we are all responsible for it. For COVID, we don't seem to be responsible. We blame some people in China. But in the ultimate sense, all of us are responsible. We played our own roles, either by silently acquiescing to the wrongdoings, the manner in which we harm the environment, the manner in which we have been harming the plant and the animals, putting them aside, and so that they come back into the human habitat, and then face the consequences. So all environmental issues, ecological issues, we are all culpable. That's why in some traditions they talk about the collective karma. In Theravada, that concept is not there, but we can see it, whether the concept exists or not exists. The fact is that is. If I produce carbon dioxide in my home more and more, and everybody does it, whole of the earth is ultimately going to get into trouble as it is going. Global warming is happening. So it's a collective karma. And so we are all collectively culpable. So in the same way, we can understand the interdependence deeply. And that also reduces the sense of self in a very major way. Once we see the every activity of us, every mental factor which arises, every even our body which is arising, the earth, air, fire, water are coming from atmosphere, from others, from trees, from water, from air, and they are constantly interchanging with ourselves. So once we look at it, that interdependence in that manner, in a deep manner, we also realize the impersonal nature of phenomena. Our own body, we realize, is impersonal. Constantly interchange is happening. So that's why I had pointed out, we should have rather than having a person-centric view, a process-centric. So what we are seeing here is essentially processes which are happening, karma which is ownerless, karma which is rolling on. Not people who are doing some things on their own. Because there's no person, fixed person, entity who's really responsible for things. So all these various means are basically, various pointers are basically to increase our awareness about the impersonal nature of existence. Okay. So we can stop. If there's anybody having a question, you can ask me. We can extend by a few minutes. Otherwise, we can stop.
सर एक क्वेश्चन और है कि ये जो हम इंटेंशन की बात कर रहे हैं और इंटेंशन एज अ मेंटल फैक्टर, सो लाइक अ डबल जेपर्डी नाउ, इंटेंशन को बनाने के लिए भी इंटेंशन करना पड़ता है क्या? Like how does one get into that?
When things are conditioned and we have the choice, as I had mentioned, when we experience dukkha, that is the trigger usually, 99.99% of the cases. Unless a person is born that he was entered the stream last life and he's born as a person with already a stream entry, then he will have a totally different mindset. But most of us, it is dukkha which is the trigger. Now, it is our choice whether we are going to use the dukkha to increase our dukkha or to come out of dukkha. That much choice is there. But then beyond that, how fast we'll be able to move, what we'll be able to do, it depends on so many conditions. We know from our own lives, each one of us, our life conditions, how much constrained we feel because of conditions of life in which we are placed, which is basically vipaka karma. So when we say something is conditioned, it means, and if there is a possibility of changing the conditioning factors, the conditioned factor will also change. So it's the question of seeing what are the conditioning factors and looking at those factors. They themselves may be interacting with some other factors, but wherever our choice exists, can exert. That's why the virya is important. Samma Sankappo is there as a part of the Eightfold Path, isn't it? Then we have Samma Vayamo. They apparently seem to be involving self. But the whole idea is that we have a choice. And when will the choice be possible? Choice is also not always possible. You remember the Dhampada quotation, Attahi Attano Natho Koi Natho Piya Sara Tasmad Adant Sudantena, अपने को दमन करेगा. दूसरे में था संयमेन अत्तनो, अपने को संयमित करेगा. So one has to do that. That's the effort one has to do. When one comes in contact with a Kalyana Mitta and he advises us to do this, how many of us listen to him? Isn't it? So that's where our choice is. Ignore it, be overwhelmed by our nivarnas, or we say, no, I see the nivarnas arising, I see the tendency for me to break the Shila, I'm not going to do it. And we'll slip. Out of 10 times, 9 times we'll slip. But once we'll succeed. And then asevana pachayo, we carry out the practice again and again and again and again. And slowly the transformation happens. So we have that dvandva between choice and control, choice and control, choice and lack of control, choice and lack of control. Because these conditioning factors exist, our kamma vipaka is going to be there. But since the kamma vipaka is not fatalistic, that gives us the choice. Had it been fatalistic, कि जो मैंने किया है वही उसका ही फल वही आने वाला, फिर तो गए, फिर तो निकल नहीं सकते. बट अगर मेरी उसको समझना बहुत आवश्यक है कि जिस तरह का कर्म मैंने किया है उस तरह की भूमि होगी, उस तरह का जो सीड है उस तरह की भूमि में ही उपजेगा ना. अगर मैंने अकुशल कर्म किया है और मेरे चित्त की चेतना हमेशा कुशल ही रह रही है अब, तो that will not produce any fruit. It will come at the appropriate time. It, depending on laws of nature, it time to ripen is come, but it doesn't get appropriate land, and then it will give a little bit of effect and finished. On the other hand, अगर मैंने unwholesome काम किया और मेरा mind जो है unwholesome ही है बुरी तरह से, then it finds the land is fertile. तो आम के पेड़ को उगाने के लिए एक तरह की जमीन चाहिए. तो अगर उस तरह की जमीन नहीं है तो पेड़ नहीं उगेगा. थोड़ा बहुत स्प्राउट हो जाएगा जो जमीन के अंदर से, but it cannot grow because the land is not suitable for it. So that tells us that kamma vipaka is not a fixed thing. It's going to change depending on what I do now. What is the state of my mind now? And that is where the choice lies. That is where the freedom lies. Otherwise तो हम कर्म विपाक में पड़े. कई लोग कहते हैं ना, अरे मेरा तो कर्म ही ऐसा है, अब मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकती, ठीक है जो हो रहा है होना. The person is ready to go to the total lethargy, total inaction. क्यों? मेरे को कर्म ही ऐसा है, देखो मेरी परिस्थितियां कैसी हैं, मैं क्या करूं, मैं तो परिस्थितियों में फंस गया हूं, क्या करूं, निकल ही नहीं सकता मैं. आप ही बता दो. एंड परिस्थितियां हैं of course, but you have to do effort. You have to find out ways and means of making a leeway in that. परिस्थिति के अंदर ही आपको leeway बनाना है अगर आप सचमुच में दुख से निकलने में इंटरेस्टेड हैं. और अगर आपने कर्म के सिद्धांत को गलत समझ लिया फिर आप निकलेंगे नहीं. So that's why I try to impress upon that part also, that though it is conditioned, there is a choice. It's available. इसलिए हमसे कहा जाता है कि वेदना पच्चया तन्हा और वेदना पच्चया पन्या. There is a choice there. उस तक तो सारी चीजें होके ही रहेंगी, उसमें कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं. सड़ायतन पच्चया फस पच्चया वेदना तो होने ही वाला है, और वो आपकी संज्ञा के हिसाब से होगा, आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते उसमें. लेकिन यहाँ पे आपके लिए कंट्रोल है. सो यू हैव टू डेवलप दैट एबिलिटी दैट यू एक्सरसाइज कंट्रोल. इट विल नॉट बी ऑटोमेटिक. That is where the effort comes. That is where samma sankappo comes. That's where samma vayamo comes. You have to have right intention. I have the intention of nekkhamma, which means renunciation, means not getting trapped in the world. It doesn't necessarily mean becoming a monk, not getting trapped in the world. So I have that intention. So I'll definitely see how do I get out of it. Now Vedana should not give rise to Tanha. Then I consult somebody, teachers, this. मतलब अगर मेरी sincere aspiration है, छंद है, nature will find. That's why I say Dhamma ave pradakkhati dhammachari. That's it will take you around. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. I hope I could answer them. So we can, if there are still doubts, we can discuss them further.